Welcome to our Portuguese Table podcast. I'm Maria Lawton, the Azorean Green Bean.
And I'm Angela Simoes, and we're just two chicks dishing about Portuguese food, culture, and what it means to be Portuguese.
So grab a glass of vinho or un copo de café and join us as we talk about our favorite foods, reminisce about growing up Portuguese,
and interview some of our community's most successful chefs and food writers.
So sit down at our Portuguese table. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Portuguese table. And
hi, everybody.
Hi. I'm like, hello, welcome to everybody to the table, and I'm not letting anybody else say hello, welcome in. I'm really excited. We have a real special guest today, and that's Margaret Pereira. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Maria. How are you?
I'm fine, honey. Now, for those of you out there listening, Margaret has a couple of Facebook pages. She's a blogger and a decorator and a cook and a mom and a wife. I mean, you just keep adding that on to your list of things that you do. But she has a page called Margaret's Portuguese Table.
Kitchen.
Kitchen. I'm sorry. It's all about the table. You know, we've got our table. You've got
there
the
are
kitchen.
tables in the kitchen, right?
There are exactly. There are tables in the kitchen, so we're all okay. But I know. Hi, Angela. How are you, honey?
Good. How are you, Maria? Hi, Margaret. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
So I just wanted to introduce you to everyone out there, Margaret. And hopefully people will get to know you and get to go on your page. But you're up in Canada, aren't you?
I am. I'm in Mississauga.
It's a beautiful little area. I was there last year.
Yes,
last year, and we met. And I met you, and I met your daughter, she was very sweet. And I can see is now your daughter's doing videos now of you and her cooking together.
That's the younger one. You didn't. I don't think you met her.
Oh, okay. I thought it was her doing it. Yeah,
How
I know.
old is she?
How old is she, hon? Your youngest one.
The youngest one's 16.
Wow.
So she's the one that made the video of the palmiers?
Yes, she is. She's trying to start out. Yeah.
Look at her. That's awesome.
I'm impressed. Good going. Good.
They look delicious.
Yeah. So with all the things that we've been talking about, and especially with our Portuguese table, is just talking about our experiences being Portuguese no matter where we live. And so just a little, if you want to introduce yourself to everyone and say hello, even though I've been trying, I think I've done most of it already. So here you go, Margaret. Just introduce yourself to everyone, sweetie.
Okay, well, I'm Margaret Varela Pereira, actually, and I came to Canada in 1971, so quite a long time ago. I was 8, so just a little bit older than you, Maria, when you went to the States.
Right.
I came from Cascais, which is very near Lisbon.
Nice.
And I immigrated here with my parents and my younger brother.
Yeah.
And basically, I always hanged around the Portuguese community. It was, in Toronto, huge Portuguese community. So it was very easy for us.
The one thing I loved when I was in Toronto, the little Portugal, the little sections, because Toronto is sectioned off into little areas, and to see little Portugal, and I felt very much at home. And I'll have to say this right off the bat. I think the people of Toronto were the nicest, sweetest people I have met. I'm saying this with all my heart. Yeah, no, I'm saying this with all my heart because I've gone to different, areas and stuff, and just meeting everyone. Everyone was always very interested in making sure that I, and no matter where I went, whether the restaurants or the cafe shops or this and that, the people there, they were all so very sweet, very sweet.
Yeah, we have a great community here.
Yeah, they really are. Now, you said you were 8 years old when you came over. So how was that experience for you when your family immigrated to Canada? Was it always to Toronto, or did you start somewhere else?
It was in Toronto. That's where we moved because my mother had her brother there and he sponsored us.
Yeah.
So very similar to your experience. That was when Salazar was in Portugal, and my father,
Yes.
was very politically active, and we had to come get away from Portugal.
Get the heck out of there.
Get the heck out of there. And so we moved to Canada. And again, my father's family was all back in Portugal, and they still are. There's the only my mom's family is here. So we always went back at least every 2 years. When I was a kid, we'd go back
Yeah.
That's great.
on vacation. Yeah. And I continued to do that. My brother really assimilated and became a lot more Canadian.
Yeah.
But I always had Portuguese friends. I took Portuguese in high school. I took Portuguese in university.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was working in the community, it was all of my jobs I worked with Portuguese community. So
It's in you. I mean, you can't help it.
no,
It is who you are.
it is.
So, and that's a beautiful thing. And at home, where you also spoke just Portuguese, like I did growing up, or
Yes. And then
yeah.
I married my husband who didn't speak English, very much English when I met him. So my first child, when she went to school, she only spoke Portuguese.
How funny.
She
Really?
went to kindergarten, she only spoke Portuguese. Now the other two, of course, already spoke English because then she was speaking English, and and now
Right.
she speaks both languages at home. But
Right.
yeah, it was quite interesting that my first daughter only spoke Portuguese.
Now, of course, because she was always immersed in it. I
Yeah.
mean, how
And my
beautiful is
mom
that?
that was babysitting, my mom still only speaks Portuguese. And she's the one that babysat her grandkids, like both mine and my brothers. So it was, yeah.
Yeah,
So Margaret, on your blog, you have the 50 random things about me, and I think my favorite one is how you shared a room with your grandmother at one point, and how half the wall, one half of the wall had pictures of Donny Osmond, and then the other half had saints. You have to have a picture of that somewhere. I would love to see
Oh,
that.
I wish I did. I don't, but I wish I did, because that was the funniest thing. Because when we lived in Portugal, I always slept with my grandmother at her house, always.
That's sweet.
And when we came to Canada, she followed us here 6 months later, and then we shared a room until I believe I was probably 13, and I used to give my mother a really, really hard time that I wanted my own space. So she finally turned the dining room into a bedroom for me.
Oh my gosh.
She said she couldn't stand listening to my complaining anymore.
But I bet as a result, you had or still have a pretty special relationship with your grandmother.
I did. She's passed away, but I did have a very special relationship with my grandmother.
Now, we have a few things that we always ask everyone, and I know this is early on into us talking, but I mean, the thing about describing your family table. Now, we'll talk about growing up and being with your mom and your grandmother. Now we're talking before you married.
Mm-hmm.
What was that table? What did that table look like? What was on that table?
Oh, what was on that table? Oh, the same thing that's still on the table when I go to my mom's house.
And that is
food. What food was on that table?
Yeah.
Well, my parents were originally from the Alentejo, so they ate a lot of. So the food has changed a little bit for me because my husband's from the north, but from the Alentejo, there was a lot of soup. There was a lot of fish dishes.
Yep.
Yeah, there wasn't as much meat as people from the north eat. I found that after I got married. Yeah.
So what is your first food memory?
You know what? My first food memory was from Portugal. Like I said, I used to live with my grandmothers, and we didn't have very much there. We didn't have a fridge, TV until we came to Canada.
Yeah.
So my first memory was bread with olive oil and sugar. Can you believe it?
Ooh,
really?
She did not have butter, and she always had olive oil because my uncle lived with us. He was younger. He was unmarried, and he loved cod. Bacalhau com batatas was his main, he was a very picky eater.
Yes.
And of course, she always had to have the olive oil, and that's what she would give me whenever I was hungry.
Interesting. Now, it's funny you say the bread with, I can see the bread and sugar because that's something my grandmother would do. She would put the slice of leftover Vienna bread or pancazeiro or whatever, and she would put butter on it, and she would sprinkle sugar on top of it, and that would be something that we'd have. But I never heard of it also with olive oil on top of that.
Yeah. Well, we didn't. My mother would do it with with the butter, but my
Yeah.
grandmother, it was with the olive oil because she didn't have butter.
Did you guys ever do cinnamon? Because my mom will do sugar and cinnamon on top of bread with butter.
I do that here, but in Portugal,
Okay.
no, we've never. I don't even remember ever having cinnamon
Yeah.
not at my grandmother's house anyway.
Yeah, the same
Okay.
thing here. It would be just sugar, not the cinnamon. Although when we do fatias douradas, that's a whole different
Yes.
thing,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but but just the bread with, with sugar on it, with butter. Yeah, that's a wonderful memory. Now, since your husband is from up north, and how different would that be for their cooking between the Alejano and his region? Did you have to learn some of the dishes that he liked?
Yes, actually, when I met my husband, when we got married, I didn't cook. I
Really?
Yeah, I baked. I have baked since I was a little kid. I used to love
Oh,
baking,
okay.
but the cooking I left it up to my mother. So
Yep.
when I met him, he cooked and he taught me how to cook.
Oh, I love it.
That's awesome.
And his mother, and when I went to Portugal, his mother, my sister-in-laws, I'd watch them, and so I could learn how they did their dishes.
So where is he from up north?
He's from near Barcelos.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah,
Barcelos is so cute.
yes,
Up north is incredible. Viana do Castelo is one of my
yes, yes,
favorite places.
beautiful.
Now you say you still go back as often as you can.
Yes. Well, now we have the three kids, and they're so busy with school and university and everything. It's not as easy to get out there. But when the kids were little, we used to go almost every couple of years as well. Yeah.
Nice. And so now at your table,
Hmm.
what is your favorite thing to make for your family?
I think seafood rice is probably my favorite.
Which
Hmm.
rice, honey?
Seafood rice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that's yeah everybody's favorite. I mean, it's not the everyday one. The everyday that the kids love is the beef stew.
Really? Carne guisada.
Carne
Interesting.
guisada. My kids
Carne
love that.
guisada.
They love dipping their bread when they come home from school, like from university, and they've been away. They're like, "Mom, please make us some."
Isn't that funny?
The
Now,
ultimate
see,
comfort food.
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds awesome right now. Now I can think I could make some carne guisada right now. Now, with Margaret's Portuguese Kitchen, how did that all come about? And yeah, just let us know how did that all come about?
Well, like I had mentioned, I was working for years. I worked with as a social worker with families that had children with disabilities, and they were all Portuguese. And I just got burnt out at one point and decided to stay home with when my youngest went to kindergarten.
Yeah.
And then when she no longer needed me, I thought, I need to do something for myself to have some fun. And I took up that the decorating, the color consultation, and
Hmm.
redesign, and that was going really well. But again, there was no contact with Portuguese. It was mostly Canadian,
Right.
and so I thought, and I started doing a blog for that. It was called Moving Forward at the time, and then I thought, oh, I cook every single day, and I cook Portuguese food almost 80% of the time. Like there's a few times
Yeah.
I'll throw in a pasta, but most of the time it's Portuguese. And I thought, oh, why not just for fun? It was barely for fun,
Yeah.
just to put it out there.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think those are Angela, I think you'll agree, one of the most, if you do things for fun, I think that's where you enjoy it the most, and there's no pressure on, and usually those are the things that succeed, is when you're doing it for fun. Do you
Yep.
agree?
I
Yeah,
agree 100%.
Now, do you create your own recipes, or you just take on traditional ones that you have?
I just basically take on traditional ones. Yeah, that I
Uh,
have that are in Portuguese, and I translate them into English as well. There's quite a
right.
bit of those.
Now, you said that when you first got married that you baked really, but you didn't cook. But it
Yeah,
looks like, or you have two daughters, you said?
three.
Three. Did you start to instill in them how to cook? I mean, it looks like the youngest one obviously is making
Oh,
videos. So how are they?
they're
Or what-
really good. The middle one loves to cook and bake. The one that Maria met
Oh,
Mhm.
loves
nice.
to cook and bake. And she'll send me snapshots of her when she's away right now at university, and she'll actually make called verde or some seafood dish, and she'll with a glass of wine, and she'll send me a picture, and it's basically
Wow.
so
I
I'm
love it.
Her
because
roommates must love her.
Yeah, I'm really impressed because it's like usually if you're by yourself, you make yourself a sandwich, right?
Yeah.
And she does that. So yeah. And then the oldest, she doesn't like to cook as much, but she's getting married, and I gave her Maria's book. And Maria was really sweet and wrote a really nice autograph for her and told her that she needed to start cooking. And she's tried so many of your recipes, Maria, and she's having a blast with it. She really,
Oh, I'm so
really enjoying
glad.
it.
I'm so glad about that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, that's
Go ahead.
great. We've talked before in the past about whether we learned it from our mothers or our grandmothers, or in your case, your husband and his family. Learning little things easy on, like here's how you brown meat, or here's how you make a hashio, or here's how you do different things. And
Mhm.
you may not use it right away, but remembering all those things that we were taught. And I found that in college and even today with some friends whose parents didn't teach them how to do that, it's like, hey, where did you learn all to do that? And it's, well, my mom taught me. I don't know. Sorry if your mom
Through
didn't teach you, but
osmosis.
yeah. So it's
Now,
important to pass those things down.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Margaret, when your parents came over, were they still as traditional and, made their homemade wine or
Yeah.
sausages, cheese? I mean, did they continue all that?
They did with. They've never made sausages or cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, they were never into that, but they did make the homemade wine. And my husband still makes homemade wine.
Does he really?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
I love that. I
Always has.
wish at the time when my dad would make it and he would have it, I could see in the fall, we'd get all these crates and crates of
Yeah.
grapes that were delivered from California over to us. And it was all the process of, all the men would be down in the basement, doing it and stuff. And the women were really never allowed in the basement. So every time, my grandmother would go downstairs to see how things were going, I'd kind of follow her along, like right behind her apron, like kind of
Mhm.
like, try to get in there. But I wish that I knew or that I was taught how to do that because I would have loved to make some wine. It's in my family right now, no one makes their wine
Oh,
except
really?
for, yeah. And at this time, one of my brother-in-laws like got the press that was my dad's press. It went to him because who
Mhm.
else was making it, and all of the supplies and the barrels and all of that stuff. So it's like, and now he's getting older and he doesn't have the ambition to do that either. So it's like it's dying out in my family for
Yeah.
being homemade. So I know even though you have three daughters, Margaret, you got to teach one of them how to make wine. You got to do it.
I'll
You
get.
got to do it.
Yeah, I'll get my husband to do that. I mean, they help. They have helped. He doesn't keep them out. It's not like, yeah, my dad used to keep us out.
Yes, and then it was true. I mean, because I wanted to be there, but you're a girl. Get upstairs with the
Yeah.
women. It wasn't that type of thing. But no, I was going to say something, and now I'm like going over and over in my head. I want to go back and forth. Now, you're decorating
Mhm.
that you do. Is it something you still do?
No, I don't do that anymore.
You don't
Actually,
do that
no,
anymore.
I just do I blog about it now. Like I do
Yeah.
mostly the DIY, the blogging.
Oh, okay. Because let me tell you, you post the most beautiful pictures of your kitchen, which I know you last year or the year before you went through a renovating and you kind of
Yes,
had everyone follow along with you on what was going on in the kitchen and it being redone. And whoever did that for you, they did a beautiful
they
job.
did, and they're a young Portuguese company actually here in Toronto.
Yay, another Portuguese
Another
company.
Port-
What's
another
the name?
Portuguese company.
What's the
Uh,
name, Margaret?
oh, the name. Oh, gee, I can't remember.
It'll
Oh,
it'll come to you, and we'll include it in, when you think of it later. We'll include the name and website in the show notes.
okay,
Yes. Yeah,
sure.
we'll do that. Because we're all about promoting our Portuguese
Yeah.
businesses and stuff.
One
But
thing I noticed about your blog post is that you have a lot of Portuguese dishes, but that are different colors. And
Mhm.
I've noticed a lot more lately that whether it's Pottery Barn or TJ Maxx, or I think yours is called Home Sense up there. We call it
Yes,
Home Goods down here.
that's right.
Um, there are so many more made in Portugal dishes and figurines and things like that in stores that it's kind of nice because that sometimes helps me make a decision on which dish I'm going to buy, if it's made in Portugal. Have you found, how are you seeing that in terms of with your own decor and what you blog about? And do you find yourself including more of the made in Portugal items?
I always get made in Portugal items. I'm like that's one of the things that I'm drawn to. Like if I go to Home Sense and I always look, I always turn the plates around, I always
Yeah,
I
turn the
love
yeah.
it.
plates around.
Love it.
If they're made in Portugal, if I can, I'm purchasing them.
Yeah.
Um, I always do that. I just love their dishes. Whenever I used to go to Portugal, I used to come back with suitcase full of dishes. I mean, now we can get them here, right? So I don't need to do that. But
That's a pretty heavy
to go
suitcase.
to the feiras there and bring the big, trays and stuff
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Portugal. Yeah.
But they have beautiful colors now, especially around Easter time with the no, pastel colors. I say pastel and I think of pastel de nata.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh
Am
my
I
God,
saying
you're
it true?
talking about a pastel de nata here. Uh, but no, you're right. And I love the gentleman, the cabbage design. And
Yes.
every once in a while, you'll see the pink cabbage.
Hmm.
I don't see it that often anymore, that design. And you're right. For us down here, it's Home Goods, which I think is the equivalent of Home Sense for you, Margaret.
Yes, it is.
And you're right. I do, but it's funny. What you're saying right now is something that Angela and I have said before. It's like, okay, we always gravitate to things that are made in Portugal.
Yeah,
I think it's just in our, we just don't bleed red. We bleed red and green, and it's like all of a sudden we are kind of drawn to those things,
that's right.
um, which is beautiful, and we should. I mean, we should because we're proud to be who we are.
So where has been maybe the most unexpected place you found a Portuguese dish or something Portuguese that you would have never thought that you'd have found something? Because I have an example that I would love to share, but I want to hear if you've had
Mhm.
an
An
experience.
unexpected place. I can't think of one. I can't because here is pretty easy to find
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Portuguese items.
Yeah, well, out in California, as I've told Maria, and she
Right.
has experienced firsthand, we're pretty limited in our choices of where we
Right.
can buy things. But
Because we have so many Portuguese stores too, like in
yeah,
Toronto.
Yes, there
Uh,
is.
yeah, there's
you're
a
quite
lot of
lucky.
Portuguese stores.
Well, my husband and I were happened upon a antique fair in this like a street fair
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
called Pleasanton over here, just completely randomly. We didn't know it was happening, and we saw it going on. Oh, let's stop! And we just were walking up and down, and there was a table full of dolls and trinkets and other things. And all of a sudden, there's this ceramic Portuguese doll dressed as a lavradeira from the
Hmm.
menu,
Yeah.
and we both zeroed in on it, and it was the only one. And oh my gosh, there's a Portuguese doll here, like of all places. It was so unexpected. And it had the price tag on it was like $125.
No,
Wow.
it
And we
wasn't.
looked at each other, we thought, yeah, that's for the person who doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
you know? But it was kind of neat to see, in the most random place, here's this Portuguese doll, and it was priced at a premium, so someone thought that they were getting a very rare item, and
Yeah.
it was kind of cool. So
Did you go to the person and tell them that it really wasn't worth that amount? Because if you go to Portugal and all that, did you do that?
no,
Oh, see,
we
I
looked at the
would have.
price and we said, is that 125 or $1.25? And they said, no, 125. And we went, oh, okay, and put it down and just sort of walked
Oh,
away. So
oh,
maybe
see,
they got the hint. I don't know.
no, they didn't, Angela,
No.
because no, you've got to tell them out. Now, see, I love estate sales. I love estate sales. I love auctions. I love yard sales. I love flea markets. I love all that stuff because even though we had, how can I explain it? Here where I am in the south coast of Massachusetts, we used to have a lot more Portuguese stores than what we do now.
Hmm.
I think when when I was younger, my mom, there was so many Portuguese stores. And it was the type of thing where you would buy something and you would buy it on credit, and they would give you a little, like almost like a little booklet, and you would make your payments every week or whatever it was. I remember this. And it would have all the home good stuff, and it would have all your oh my God, your laces, your even jewelry from Portugal. I mean, it would be everything. And those people who ran that store, they've become older, they've retired, and their children or their grandchildren or whatever, they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So little by little, we're losing that here. And whereas when I was in Toronto, like Margaret was saying, there are so many of them. It was like, oh my God, this is like, it was really wonderful. It was really wonderful to see all that. So now and I love old stuff. I love things with character. I like things with history in it. I love that stuff. And I like certain dishes. And I think you heard this because you had this conversation, Angela, with my husband and and that is, I love dishes, but I especially love bowls. Yeah. I don't know why I have this thing for dishes and bowls, and I really love like the transferwares. So if you have like pink transferware in plates and bowls as well as the blue one. So I find like the neatest stuff sometimes when I do especially estate sales. And you've got someone's home who, obviously they've moved on and the family wants nothing to do with whatever is in the house, and you literally go through someone's home. And for me, I go straight to the kitchen. I go straight to their kitchen, and sometimes you feel like you're intruding on someone's home because everything is still set up like it was like when they were there, but now they've got price tickets or name a price on it kind of thing. And I have found Portuguese items or things made in Portugal where they had no clue what it was and got it for hardly anything. And one of my favorite ones was the salad bowl with the salad, the big, huge salad container with the small salad bowls of the cabbage that I got, I think, for like $7 or something like that, which for the whole set.
Wow.
Which is like, oh my God. I think I paid them, grabbed it, and ran because I was
they figured out. Yeah, they had just given away the deal of the century.
Yes, because they had no clue. It was like, it looks like I don't know what, and it's a bowls and whatever. But I love bowls. I go crazy for bowls.
That cabbage is so popular now. Like those dishes. And I remember as a kid, I couldn't stand them. I thought, this is tacky. But now, I actually have a tea set that my aunt gave me. She lives in Portugal, and she gave it to me for my enxoval. Did you have an enxoval, Maria?
Now that's
like a dowry.
I would say before you get married,
before you get married. When I was a kid, every time I had a birthday or Christmas, the aunts would always give you, dishes or towels, so of course by the time you get married, nothing matches, right? Because you've had years.
Right. You're right.
And she gave me this tea set that was of that cabbage pattern, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? And now I love it, and I have it in my kitchen, and I was like, thank God I did not throw it out.
Yes.
I kept it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because our taste also really changes as we get older, right?
Yes, it does. I know my mom would she liked vases. There was a thing about her with vases, and I have a couple of her vases. And she also used to like milk glass. Mm-hmm. And that was something. And when she passed, we really didn't go through the house because my dad was still alive and he was, still there. So we're not going through everything stayed the same. But when my dad passed and we're going through everything and we had all of these, vases and milk glass stuff and whatever. And I'm like, I don't want any of the milk glass. I don't want any. And I took a couple of her vases, and one had also belonged to my grandmother. So I have kind of like it was my grandmother's and my mom's, and now it's mine. And then this other little green Fenton bowl that was really cute, whatever, that I have. And only recently have I come to appreciate milk glass.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, I'm thinking to myself, oh, my mom had. So now when I'm seeing something, it's like, oh my God, my mom had that.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that beautiful? And isn't that. So I'm just. And also, I have a cousin of mine who in St. Michael, her thing when she came here and visited and saw milk glass, she's like, oh my God, I love that. I have a few pieces. I love that. So anytime I would go visit her, or she comes here, or they back and forth, or her children, a little piece of milk glass goes with her because that's what she likes. And all of a sudden now I'm like, I really want that vase. It's like, oh my God, I'm appreciating it more and more.
Maria, I had to look up what milk glass was because I had never heard of it, but I've seen it. So I'm looking at pictures now. I never knew that that's what it was called. It is beautiful, but I think it is something that grows on you for sure over time.
And now I know what's a Fenton, and I know what's a hobnob, and I know what's I know the patterns already. It's like, yes, I am now really, I could be a specialist on milk glass.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So let me ask both of you, do either of you have, it's a little ceramic barrel that sits in a wooden holder, and then it has 4 glasses, small glasses that are also shaped like little barrels. But
I remember seeing that, but I don't have that.
I have one, and I know it came from a family member. And I have to ask my mother where it came from, but I have one. And it's one of those things where as a kid, you kind of thought it was cool. And then as a teenager, you're like, oh, that's so old. And I would never put that in my house. And now I love it. I mean, because it's a sentimental thing,
Yes.
But it's so cute.
Margaret, we didn't get to ask you this question, but what is your favorite dish?
My favorite dish is carne pork all'anciana.
Really?
Oh, same as David.
Same as David Late's.
Yeah.
We had
my favorite dish.
If
I go to a restaurant and, it's on the menu, that's what I'm getting.
Wow.
It's delicious. It is delicious.
It is delicious. I mean, how can you not? I mean, really.
Now, is there anything you won't eat?
Yes. That was one of the things I learned with my husband is up north, they do have a little bit of, some foods that are, have you heard of papaj? But not your papaj, not the papaj with the flour, Maria.
Okay.
It's papaj is made with pork blood.
Oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. Well, I thought I would never eat that. And this last month I was in Portugal and my husband was eating it. And I actually tried it. And it wasn't too bad. I mean, I had a spoonful. I didn't have a bowl full. Just a spoon to taste. And it was okay. I mean, it was all right.
So is it almost like mursala, but without it being in the casing?
It's almost like I don't know how they make it, but it's my mother-in-law makes it, and it's almost like it's a brown soup, basically thick. And what makes it brown is the blood, right? The cooked
blood. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But the one thing that she does make that I won't eat is tripas.
Oh, I feel the same way.
That no, I haven't had it. And at first, when we got married, and I used to go there, they used to make a horse cabidela. You know what that is?
No,
I've heard of that. Yeah,
the rest of the chicken, and then when the chicken's almost finished cooking, you put in a little bit of the chicken blood. So it's a little brown, right?
Yes.
And so I was very thinking about eating that as well. But so what she would do is she would take out a little bit of chicken and a little bit white rice for me before she put in.
She put in the blood. Well, the whole thing is very well that when they would do those things, they were thinking it was going to add more strength or fortify the meals to make it, better for you and all of that. Yeah. Exactly. Make you stronger in the same way that they would always add an egg to everything because, they're going to temper an egg in your soup. They're going to temper an egg in your meal. I mean, in your broth. I mean, that's what it was because you would say, well, why would you do that? Well, it gives you strength. Yeah. And the same thing with papaj in the that my grandmother would make, but not the one with, like you said, with blood, but it was with flour, and that's papas grosas. That was with flour. If it was with cornstarch, it would be papa fina, which would be a much, thinner and,
Yes.
Whatever.
That's what my mother would make, because I think I mentioned that to you once, that my mother used to make it with cornstarch.
Yes, so it's papa fina. And then they would add, while they were doing that, they would, have a mixed egg tempered in. So obviously it wouldn't become scrambled eggs, but that would be added as well. Because again, God, we must have been weaklings or something that they kept wanting to give us strength.
So that arroz cabidela, I think that was the dish that I tried up north. We have friends that live up there. Is there another dish where it's chicken and rice and they put a little bit of chicken blood? Do you know if there's another dish?
No, I think that's it.
So it's probably it. So so my husband will eat a lot more than I do. I have to say I'm a little bit of a picky eater, but in order to get me to try it, he said, you're going to really like this because it has chocolate in it.
Oh, he's so bad.
And so in front of everybody, he says, just try a little bit. It's got chocolate in it. And so I tried it, and he said, what do you think? I said, well, it's not bad, but it doesn't taste like chocolate. And that's when he said, well, that's because it's not chocolate, it's blood. But it wasn't too bad. Kind of like you, Margaret. I had a couple of spoonfuls or whatever. I don't know that it's a whole, I couldn't eat a big, travessa full of it or anything like that. But yeah, I will always remember that, and the brown color of the rice. But I guess it goes to show, like like my mother will eat anything because she was raised with it, right? So if you were raised eating that stuff and it was not a big deal to you, then the idea of it doesn't gross you out.
Right. And my husband eats everything.
Your husband eats everything?
Everything, yeah.
Now, see, I love marsala. I love a blood sausage. I do. I really love it. I could have it. I could eat it all the time because it's just, I really like it. But it grosses out plenty of people.
Oh, sure.
And when you say, oh, it's blood sausage, they go, what? Like, ugh, that's so gross. And it's like, oh, no, it's so good.
Well, there's so many spices and onions. I mean, there's so much in it that, you don't really
right now, at the store where I go to, there's three different types of marsalas. There's a marsala that has more rice in it as the filler. There's another marsala that has more parsley as a filler. And then it has the mureru, which is the one with the meat. There's meat in the marsala. Mm-hmm. Oh, and so personally, my favorite is the one with parsley. That's hands down my favorite. And I don't care for the one with the meats in it. To me, it doesn't feel like, because again, I didn't grow up with it that way. Mm-hmm, I think that's more continent, if I'm not mistaken. And the one, is that correct, Margaret? That would be more continent, isn't it?
Continent with the meat, yes.
With the meats, yeah. But the one sausage that I am in love with right now, which has its traditions go back to being called the Jewish sausage, which is
farinera.
No, alheira.
Alheira.
Yeah. Yes, alheira. That one. That's the one. Am I saying it wrong?
Both of them.
I just discovered that one as well because I had seen a lot of recipes online in Portuguese for alheira.
Yeah.
To include that, and I was like, "What is this? I've never tried it." So I finally bought some, and I buy it all the time now. I love it.
Isn't it amazing? Oh my God, it's so good.
Very garlicky taste, right? Very
yes. I love it. I love it.
With one that was like, I had it in the fridge, so it was starting to wilt. I took out the casing. I beat it with 2 eggs. And I put it on some tarts that I had, like tart shells, the little ones.
Yeah. Ooh.
Cheese on top in the oven. Oh, they were like dying for more.
Now, when you cook your marsala and alheira, all that stuff, do you fry it or how do you cook it?
I fried it. I have barbecued it. Okay. I've used alheira in stuffing.
Yes, I could see that.
Oh, I bet that's delicious. That's a great idea.
Because it gives it a really nice flavor.
Yeah.
Now, I've always fried or grilled kind of thing until I had one of my aunts in St. Michael or whatever who told me they don't fry anymore. because sometimes it makes such a huge mess on the stove top, which it does. I mean, it splatters everywhere. We know that. Yeah. But I thought, well, that's part of the thing. Well, she said, no, you just you put it in the oven at 350 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that would be in Celsius now, because I think it's 180. Is it 180 Celsius?
180.
Okay. Yeah, because I know 180 is 350, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And you would take your sausage, your marsala, whatever, and you would prick it, still have to prick it, and you put it in the oven for like 20, 30 minutes. And you cook it in the oven.
But that's really good.
And so it still pops, because what I love when I fry it, I like the crunchy part of it.
Okay, yeah.
That's like always my favorite with like bread to eat that. Oh my God, I love that. So I was afraid that if I did it in the oven, I wouldn't have the crunchy part, but the crunchy part ends up being the very bottom of the sausage.
Right.
Where it's on the pan, that part is the crunchy part. But yeah, so if you guys want to do an easy or a faster way of doing it or whatever, or no splattering, if you don't have time for splattering, that's an easy way to do it, just right in your oven.
I bet you could do that also in the toaster oven, right? If you didn't want to heat up your oven, could you try the toaster oven?
Yeah, I would think so. Yes, I would think so. Yeah, no, but I love that sausage now, and the history behind it is, obviously we had a lot of we do have a lot of Jewish ancestry. Being part of who we are, being Portuguese, there was a lot of Portuguese Jews. And when they came in and, you had to, what was it? The Inquisition there, when you had to come in and you had to convert to Christianity. And a lot of them said, they were converting, but they didn't. And, it's all in secret. And one of the things was the sausages, and they couldn't to keep kosher, they came up with this sausage that originally had everything but pork. So it would have chicken in it. It would have lamb. Not lamb. I'm sorry. It would have, it could have had anything but pork in it. But I think now they make it with pork. Someone was saying the other day that they make aljera with codfish in it.
Oh, really? That's probably really good.
That I want that. I want to try that. I have not seen it yet. I heard about it. Yeah, so I think the next time we take a look and ask if there's one made with codfish, and I want to try it because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I think anything made with the bacalhau, the salted cod, is going to be delicious.
Yes,
I think
so too.
Now fresh cod's another story, because it's just like a fish, and fish can be good or bad, right? But the salted cod, I just have yet to have a bad dish.
Now, do you buy the salted cod and desalt it yourself? Like, do you a large, like you get a big one, or do you buy little pieces and do it just as you need it?
We can buy either here. We can buy the big, like whole fish, and then they'll cut it up for us, or we can buy it already packaged and cut and stuff like that.
Same thing here for Massachusetts. Same thing. We can do the same. And what's happy or lucky for us is that there's a lot of Italians in Rhode Island that they also eat bacalhau. So there's a lot of international markets that you can find bacalhau in there, that it just doesn't have to be Portuguese. But we can find it, buy a big, huge piece and have them cut it in pieces for us. Or like Angela said, we can buy small little one, like a little box almost, that like a pound of it comes in it. But some of that stuff comes from Canada. That comes from you guys.
Yeah.
And so I know that salted cod is produced up in Canada, and that's right up there in the quality of codfish, as well, of course, Norwegian cod. That's like number one. I think we've hit every question we wanted to ask you.
I think, yeah.
I mean, the thing is we just again, we just wanted to let people know how it's the same. I think it comes down to, it doesn't matter where we're living, whether it's in the United States or, as with you, Margaret, in Canada. Traditions are being held on. They're being passed on, and knowing who you are and being Portuguese is still something that will it is in us no matter where we're living, and that's important. That's really important. Now, your girls, are they proud to be Portuguese? I mean, obviously they're Portuguese on both sides of the family.
Yes, yes, yeah, they are. They're very proud to be Portuguese. My middle child is actually going to Portugal this summer and taking two of her friends who are not Portuguese.
Oh, great.
Vacation.
Really?
Yes,
That's
in
awesome.
May. They're going there for 3 weeks.
Good for her.
They're going to have
Now,
a blast.
she is going to have a blast.
Yeah,
And she'll be the tour guide for them through the whole
that's
thing.
right. That's right.
Wow, that's awesome. And now I know what I want to ask. So I know when I was in Toronto, of course, we have the little Portugal that's there with all the restaurants, the shops, the bakery. I mean, just everything. And everywhere I went, everyone was talking Portuguese, which is amazing because again, here in the United States, you'd go to those places, their first speaking is English and then Portuguese comes after. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I really loved that fact that I was there and I felt like I was back in St. Michael. I felt like I was back there. I was like, okay, am I in Canada or am I in Portugal? I have no, because that's how I felt. But with all of that, that includes the churches, the organizations, the music, all of that stuff is if you're back in Portugal, is there all in Canada, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we have lots and lots of organizations that are Portuguese, lots of clubs, churches, everything.
Yeah.
Radio stations, TV stations.
Yeah.
Everything.
And what do you think has really helped to maintain such a strong presence there? Because like Maria said, not only, I mean, on the East Coast, that's already a lot more than what we have out here, but on both coasts, it's slowly kind of dying out. Organizations are consolidating, things like that.
The difference between, I'm generalizing, but I think the difference between Canada and the U.S. is that, like, we're very multicultural in the sense that a lot of groups start up their own organizations. So it's not just the Portuguese. The Italians have their stuff. The Chinese have theirs. And they seem to, even though, everybody assimilates a little bit, but even with schools, the languages are taught in schools. There are still schools in Toronto that teach Portuguese. When I went to high school, I took Portuguese. There was Portuguese and Italian and Spanish at my high school.
Wow.
Yeah, you're very lucky. We didn't. There's very few schools here that will offer Portuguese.
Yeah, and for me, you would think that in Massachusetts, the South Coast, we would have had Portuguese language being offered sooner than it was. But for me, I had to either take, growing up, I took French. And then and that was in grammar school because they offered a second language and we took French. That was what we had to take. So my French comes from fifth grade French.
But you guys have a town in Massachusetts that just started a Portuguese immersion program in one of your schools.
Well, what's funny is even with my oldest daughter, because in high school I took Latin. It wasn't a type of thing where Portuguese wasn't even offered if I wanted it. And then when my oldest daughter was in high school or even in middle school and high school where they offered the second language, it was Spanish. They didn't even offer Portuguese. It wasn't until my twins were born and went through the school system that Portuguese was offered. So, and it's offered now, but it's been a while. And with thinking how many of us are here actually living here when the representation wasn't there in the language, which is kind of strange. It sounds strange now.
Yeah.
So
this has been great. So nice to meet you, Margaret. Oh, and I did want to tell you, because again, one of the random facts is that one of your nicknames is Guida.
Yes.
And my husband loves that name. In fact, when we were choosing names for our daughter, he really, 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 really wanted to name her Margarita so that we could call her Guida.
Yeah.
And
that's actually my real name, Margarita.
Huh?
My real name is Margarita. It's not Margaret.
Margaret. Yeah, I kind of figured if that was your nickname. I was really concerned that here in the US, I mean, I don't know how sophisticated Canadian tongues are, but I'm quite certain everyone here would have called her Margarita. And
Yes, they would
I
have.
was just not, I was like, oh, I
That's
don't want to have to
exactly
correct
why
people all the time. So,
yeah. But I
yeah.
think now here it's changed. But when I was a kid and I came here, I was Margarita, and they would mispronounce it. They would misspell it. They would spell it with a Guerita or something at the end. They would do all kinds of funny
Oh
things to it.
gosh.
So, and that's why then I started going by Margaret, because it's like, okay, you know,
It's
just
just
too much
easier.
confusion. It's just
Yeah.
easy. And now I think, I should have stuck with it, because now it's here. You find that a lot of people are naming their kids very traditional names.
Yeah, I think we're going in a full circle, folks.
Yeah,
I really do. I
exactly.
do. Because whereas the other day we spoke to, like, for example, David Late, and his his thing of coming over, or his family coming over and growing up and always not wanting to be Portuguese. He wanted to be something else but Portuguese, because they were looked at a different way or whatever. I never experienced that. That's not what I'm getting at. But the way that we're brought in, you had to assimilate right away. That was the key thing. And where a lot of people are had to change their names or redo their name, because it made it more Americanized. But now, where like he said, people didn't want to say who they were Portuguese. Now my girls, who are in their 20s, my youngest ones, when they went to school, it was like, yeah, you're Portuguese. I'm Portuguese. Yeah, I'm Portuguese too. If you weren't Portuguese, you were like, what? You're not Portuguese. I mean, like, what do you mean you're not Portuguese? Because it seems like now you're so proud to say you're Portuguese. I don't know. Things are changing.
Yes, yes.
I can see that changing more and more. The not just assimilating, but saying, hey, this is who I am. Yes, I'm American. I am American, but guess what? I'm also Portuguese.
Yep.
Or yes, I'm Canadian, but guess
Yes.
what? I'm Portuguese. So I love that. Love it.
Well, out here in California, we are fairly multicultural, so everybody was something. And so,
Yeah.
it was, well, I'm Portuguese. Yes, of course. So it was your way of almost gave you your identity, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
it helped you have your own, right? Everybody had their own, so I have my own too. So I was always very proud. Yeah, we've had this conversation. I never had the experience of not being proud or being ashamed of being
Yeah.
Portuguese. It was always something that we loved, and something that we were talking about to a group of young Portuguese at a summer camp earlier last year, was that, we marched in the parades. So we wore the crowns and everything. And I said, how could you not be proud? You were a queen marching in the parade with people waving at you. I mean, doesn't every little girl dream about being a queen,
You're
So,
darn right.
or a
You're
princess?
darn right.
So
You're
yeah,
darn right.
we
Yeah.
strutted our stuff when we walked down the street.
Well, it's funny because I was never a queen. I was always part of, like, the
Court.
court, but I was never the queen. But my oldest, I know, but my oldest daughter reminded me the other day. She's like, Mom, remember when I was crowned? Like, that was like, she wasn't the queen, but she got to be at the end, like, be all dressed up and was crowned with the cream, with the large, huge. She was a tiny little thing, and she had this big crown on her head and whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, Erica, you're right, you did. She goes, I'll never forget that. It's like,
Oh, that's sweet. That's very sweet.
It's something you don't forget. You don't forget.
Oh.
Well, Margaret, this has been wonderful. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
And thank you for just explaining and describing your how it felt being Portuguese in Canada. And you know what? It comes down to, it really doesn't matter, does it? We're all having the same experiences, aren't we?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Yeah, which is great.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, it was really great to meet you, Margaret, and best of luck with your page and your blog. And we'll be sure to put all the website addresses in the show notes so people can find you and follow you. And
Great.
And we'll have to get up to Toronto to come see you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was fantastic.
I am
Maybe we
dying
could
to
put
go
some-
back up there
yeah.
again this year. I'm dying to go back up there again. So,
Come and visit my farm.
Yes, yes. And I did say
kitchen.
the next time I was up there, we were going to cook together.
Yep.
I think we might have to do that.
Thank you, ladies.
We can record the next podcast from Margaret's Portuguese table in her.
Yes. But I don't know. I think we'd all have to be there, right, Scott? You too, right? The sound engineer. He'll have to be there too.
Sure.
I'll have lots of made wine.
Excellent.
All right, Margaret. Thank you so much, honey. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I have. Thank you very much.
All right, hon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, wasn't that a great show with her?
She's so sweet. I love. Yeah.
She is adorable. And I know she was very nervous because I've spoken to her in person and she's much more, talkative and stuff. And I think she was a little nervous, but that's okay, folks. There's no need to be nervous. We don't bite, do we, Angela? No, it's all fun. This is all fun. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed hearing what Margaret has to say and her, her story about immigrating into Canada. And really, folks, it's really pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what? I actually have to give her kudos because how she learned to cook is very non-traditional, right? So her husband taught her to cook, and then she ended up learning a lot of recipes from her mother-in-law and her husband's family. And we females can be prideful sometimes, right? And so, I mean, I know many people who would, how do I say this very diplomatically, politely refuse or be stubborn to say, I'm not going to learn from your mother.
Yes, absolutely.
But she seemed very open to it. So I just want to say kudos to her for doing that because she knew it was important to her husband and he cooked for her too. So it sounds like it's a win-win for everybody there.
Absolutely. It's funny. My husband, of course, is not Portuguese. He's English Irish. So when I married him, it was the type of thing where, my mother-in-law does not really care to cook. She cooks because she has to, but she really doesn't enjoy it. So I wanted to do some of the dishes that he liked. Yeah. But there were very few. And the majority of the dishes he liked were really Italian. It was Italian dishes.
Funny. How funny is that?
Isn't that? So when I first married, I was making Italian dishes for my husband to make him happy. Isn't that funny?
Well, aren't you a multicultural family?
Oh my God. I wear so many hats. Oh, and the only other thing that I forgot to mention, or we forgot to kind of talk about when Margaret was on was, how she was saying about her name and how it's Margarita, not Margaret, but we change it, Americanize it or Anglo, you know what I mean? We just change it when we come from there. There are so many people that I know where they're like, not only first names change when they come over, last names also.
My grandparents did that. Mm-hmm.
Really? And it's funny because when you have people who now here in the United States are called White, their last name is White. But really, it's Branco. That was the name of Branco. So you have some people that are called, Branco, and some people that are called Whites, and they're from the same family. But it's just that, they said, well, what does Branco mean? Oh, it means the color, white. Okay, white it is. Right. So they become Whites. Or Punt is bridges.
Oh, yeah. So
there's a lot of people out there who have the punt or the pont or whatever it is. And then there's others that are called bridges because ponts or punt is bridges. So it's funny how names kind of change.
There's actually a website. I'll try and look for it. But there's a website that a gentleman actually did a lot of research into if this is your last name and you know that you're Portuguese, this potentially could have been your original last name, your family's last name. He's got them all listed. I'll try and find it. It's really fascinating to see. Yeah, it's fascinating to see how the evolution occurred. So on my family, it's not a direct translation, but for example, my paternal grandfather, paternal, I guess, my dad's father.
Your dad's dad, yeah.
Was Da Costa Narciso, and then when they came over, they dropped the Narciso and the da, so it just became Joseph Costa, right? So that's what my maiden name is. And then on his mother's side, his grandfather's name was Joseph Pereira, but there was another Joseph Pereira that lived on the same street, and their mail kept getting confused, including like tax documents and everything. So he just changed his last name to Perry. So
isn't that funny?
Yeah. So that happened. And then there was on my mom's side, the maiden name is Moraes, or Moraes, spelled AES, but then somewhere along the lines it got changed to AIS. Wow. I'm not quite sure where, but yeah. It's just funny how that happens.
It is funny how that happens. And you don't expect it that.
No.
You always think, well, okay, that's my name. No, it's not. And there was also nicknames. People had nicknames.
Yeah.
And from those nicknames, that's what they signed their name or what their family now is known for, which that could be a whole other podcast we could do on Portuguese names. But I mean, it really is interesting how it all changes. So,
well, here's an idea. This is totally off the cuff, random, but let's see if it works. So, call out to our listeners if your family name is a nickname, or you know a story about a nickname in your family, like your great grandfather or something like that. Send it in to us, and on the next podcast, we'll read a few stories that could be kind of funny.
Yes, that's a great idea. Speaking of that, I mean, I know we have just been having lots of fun with these podcasts, and we love, love, love all your feedback. So the more feedback, the better. So we really appreciate it.
Yes, we are collecting your feedback. In fact, we saw one today on the Facebook page. Mark Sanders, thank you for commenting, and he said that listening to us was like listening to his in-laws.
So I saw that.
I love that. I'm going to take it as a compliment.
I do take it as a compliment because he said first of all, he's a smart man. He married a first-generation Portuguese woman. So right off the bat, Mark, you're a very smart man. But we love that. I saw that too, and I was laughing. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, okay. We're part of the family. What that means is we're part of the family, which is a great thing. Thanks, Mark.
Well, and we've achieved a part of our goal, right? We want people to feel like they're sitting at our table and just having a conversation with their friends. So
absolutely.
So everybody, send your comments in, and we may be reading your comments in our podcast.
Yes, I love it. All right, folks. Well, thanks again for listening to us. I think this is coming to an end here. Yeah, until next time, everyone.
Até a próxima, Maria.
Até a próxima, Angela. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening to our Portuguese Table podcast.
If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so on SoundCloud or iTunes.
And all episodes can be found on our website at www.ourportuguesetable.com.
You can also reach us at feedback@ourportuguesetable.com with comments, questions, or suggestions.
Até a próxima!